Hello, friends. In today's Learn English story, we will explore a night that changed history forever. A young girl stood on a cold ship watching the dark ocean. She did not know that in a few hours her life would change forever. This is the story of survival, fear, and courage. The ship was called the RMS Titanic. People said it could never sink. It was the biggest and most luxurious ship in the world. Rich families, workers, and dreamers were all on the boat. Everyone believed they were safe, but something unexpected was waiting in the dark ocean that night. Among the passengers was a young girl traveling with her family. She was excited and happy. She walked on the deck looking at the stars and the endless sea. Her parents promised her a better life in America. Everything felt perfect, but sometimes danger comes when we feel the most safe. That night the air was cold and quiet. The sea looked calm, almost peaceful. The girl could see bright stars above her head. She smiled and held her mother's hand, but far ahead of the ship something silent and deadly was floating in the water, waiting without any warning. Suddenly there was a strange feeling across the ship. It was not loud, but people noticed something was wrong. The ship had hit an iceberg. At first, many passengers did not understand the danger. Some even laughed, thinking it was not serious. But the truth was far more dangerous. The crew quickly started checking the damaged water was entering the lower parts of the ship. The strong and powerful Titanic was slowly starting to lose its fight against the cold ocean. The young girl did not understand what was happening, but she could feel fear in the air. Passengers were told to stay calm, but confusion began to grow. Some people returned to their rooms, others came outside to ask questions. The girl looked at her parents, their faces were serious now. For the first time, she felt something was very wrong. The crew started preparing lifeboats. They told women and children to come first. Many people still believed the ship would not sink. Some did not want to leave their warm rooms, but time was running out and the water kept rising inside the ship. The young girl held her mother tightly as they moved toward the lifeboats. The night was getting colder. The sound of the ocean felt louder now. People were shouting, asking for help, trying to understand what was happening. Fear slowly turned into panic. Here comes the moment that changed everything. The girl saw lifeboats being lowered into the dark ocean, but there were not enough for everyone. Some people had to stay behind. The truth became clear. Not everyone would survive this night. Her father looked at her with deep emotion. He tried to stay strong. He told her she must go with her mother. The girl did not want to leave him. She held his hand tightly, but he gently pushed her forward, knowing this might be their last moment together. The lifeboat was cold and crowded. The girl sat close to her mother, shaking with fear. As the boat slowly moved away from the ship, she looked back. The Titanic stood tall in the dark night. Lights still shining, it was hard to believe it was sinking. Then something unforgettable happened. The front of the ship slowly went down into the water. People were screaming, some were jumping into the freezing ocean. The girl covered her ears, but she could still hear the cries of fear and pain all around her. The ocean was freezing cold. Anyone who fell into the water had little chance to survive. The girl held her mother and closed her eyes. She did not want to see what was happening, but she knew this night would never leave her memory. The Titanic broke into two parts. It slowly disappeared into the dark ocean. The lights went out. Everything became silent for a moment. Then only the sounds of people in the water could be heard. It was a moment of deep fear and sadness. The lifeboat moved further away. The girl looked around. Many people were crying. Some were quite in shock. Everyone had lost something that night, a family member, a friend, and a dream. The cold air made everything feel even more painful. But the story does not end here. What happened next would test her courage even more. The night was long and survival was not guaranteed yet. The dark ocean still held danger, and the young girl had no idea what would come next. The lifeboat moved slowly across the dark and freezing ocean. The young girl sat quietly, holding her mother's hand. The night felt endless. The wind was cold and the silence was heavy. Suddenly, they heard distant cries from the water, and fear returned again. Some people in the lifeboat wanted to go back and help those in the ocean. Others were afraid they knew the boat could sink if too many people came in. The girl listened to the argument, her heart beating fast. She wanted to help, but she was also scared. The cries slowly became weaker one by one. The voice disappeared into the cold night. The girl would never forget those sounds. It was a moment that showed how dangerous the ocean was. Survival was not easy, and everyone this season felt heavy and painful. Hours passed and the sky slowly started to change. A faint light appeared in the distance. The girl looked up and saw the first sign of morning. The dark night was finally ending, but the fear inside her heart was still strong. Then someone shouted, a ship was coming. Hope returned to everyone in the lifeboat. The rescue ship was the RMS Carpathia. It came to save those who survived the disaster. The girl felt relief for the first time. As the lifeboat moved closer, people began to cry again, but this time with hope. The girl held her mother tightly. They were cold, tired, and scared, but they were alive. The rescue ship looked like a miracle in the middle of the ocean. When they reached the ship, strong hands helped them climb up. The girl felt weak, but she kept moving. Warm blankets were given to them. For the first time in hours, she felt a little so safe, but her heart still carried deep sadness. She looked around and saw many faces filled with shock. Some people were searching for their loved ones, others sat silently, unable to speak. The girl searched for her father, but he was not there. Slowly, she understood the painful truth. Her father did not survive. The memory of his last look stayed in her mind. That moment changed her life forever. She had survived, but she had also lost something very important. The rescue ship continued its journey. The girl sat quietly thinking about everything that had happened. The beautiful ship, the calm night, the sudden crash, and the terrifying escape. It all felt like a dream, but it was real. Days later, they reached land. People were waiting to help the survivors. The girl stepped into the ground with slow steps. She felt safe again, but her heart was heavy. Life would never be the same after the night. The story of the Titanic spread across the world. Newspapers wrote about the tragedy. People were shocked that such a powerful ship could sink. The girl became part of the story, a survivor of one of the most famous disasters ever. But her real story was about courage. She had faced fear, loss, and danger. Yet she survived. She carried the memory of that night in her heart forever. It taught her how strong a person can be in the hardest moment. Years later, she still remembered the cold ocean and the dark sky. She never forgot the sound of the waves or the faces of people that night, but she also remembered her father's love and his final sacrifice. This story teaches us something important. Life can change in a moment. We may feel safe, but challenges can come suddenly. What matters is how we face those moments with courage and hope, just like that young girl did. So, what would you do in a such moment? Would you stay strong or would fear take over? This question stays in our mind. Stories like this are not just history, they are lessons about life, courage, and human strength.